Good evening. My name is Kelley Bird Naytowhow. I'm from Sturgeon Lake and also from Montreal Lake Cree First Nation here in Saskatchewan. I'm here to invite you into the session about body mapping methodology. I'm going to be speaking to it from an Indigenous perspective and how I've chosen to use body mapping in terms of gathering and working alongside one sacred story and honoring that, and is body mapping that I've come to learn that allows me to navigate along those lines of, again, honoring that sacred story. This is phase one of two as far as your guys' training as story catchers. I'm hoping that what has been delivered you guys can further work with. The idea, the intent behind this video is for you to watch and take notes yourselves in terms of bringing this knowledge to your interviewee for this our identity protection project. So this presentation will be about the concept of body mapping, which is a research methodological tool that allows for information to be learnt from what culture and the body can teach us, or vice versa. What the body can teach culture. They're one and the same in my view. So in terms of meeting this COVID-19 scenario, when it comes to working with one's sacred story, there's always that approach. There's always that intent that can be followed upon. And so using body mapping is one way that we can continue with that medicine that we first chose to walk with. And so because we're missing the physical aspect of research, now we're turning to the virtual via video. And so here we are. So bear with us, bear with myself in terms of bringing this knowledge to you, to whereas you can work with it and walk with it yourselves. So the idea is having items, working with your interviewees and seeing what materials they have on their side at home. And so what is needed in this first phase of two, this phase is going to be called the brainstorming of the body mapping process. So what we're looking for is a scrap piece of paper, preferably a blank page. They can either do it in pen, pencil, crayon, marker, or anything else at their home that they feel that helps them express their medicine. Again, when it comes to being story catchers, we're the ones who have the ability to create that ethical space to whereas our interviewees want to speak with us. And so with that being stated, always asking them what could they have, or what they have at their home, what can they use to help express themselves. And it's no different from how we learn how we want to be expressed. Some of us can write, some of us are better writers than drawers, or vice versa. Some of us are better drawers than writers. And so meeting an individual where they're at, there's no true way to do so. It's up to us to be creative and to be able to find out just what that's going to look like and sound like. So our first objective through this brainstorming exercise is to create a space for brainstorming. Again, this is when you're working with one's sacred story, you don't want to rush into the story. You don't want to haphazardly walk into someone's story without taking that reflection first and foremost. Part of that reflection is first grounding ourselves. So when you're asking your interviewee to begin brainstorming, I'm going to suggest your interviewee, and if you yourself can do this through the video, is to take that time and smudge. Acknowledge those medicines for what they are and how they're given to us to help us ground our minds and hearts and our spirits for most of. So in writing those medicines, my late dad has always shared with me, if all in doubt, turn to the medicines. So if you can't turn to the next human being, we're always able to turn to the medicines. And it's those medicines are going to help us navigate us, our ways of knowing, our ways of being, our growth here on Mother Earth. And so creating that space for brainstorming should begin with grounding ourselves through smudge, through prayer, through song, if need be. Again, meeting your interviewee where they're at involves just being creative and asking them, what do you need to ground yourself? What works on your end that grounds yourselves? So this is about allowing ourselves to go from our minds to our hearts. And so that distance from mind to heart, it's a long journey. And it's a journey that we're forever going to be traveling upon. But there's ways, Indigenous ways of knowing that helps us navigate that journey. So this transition alone, within this brainstorming aspect of the research, can be a daunting, if not. There's nothing out there that really shows how we can properly navigate from the mind onto paper. And so one thing that comes to my mind, and I want to pass this teaching on to you guys, that nothing in life is without process. The old people have constantly talked about having processes and models out there which guide them, that helps navigate their ceremonies first and foremost. And those ceremonies in turn help us, allow us to dig deeper and allow us to reflect upon what it means to be human. And so this process of body mapping, this process of brainstorming I'm bringing to you, is just one way of how, again, going back to how do we honor one sacred story. So I shall begin by building upon this process of creating a body map. And so let it be known that this is not the body map itself. We're not going to get the life-size body map within this process. It's only going to be the brainstorming phase. So we'll get to the big body map, and if it happens again on a later stage. But this stage here is about the brainstorming and how I'm helping you guys help navigate yourselves when you approach your interviewees. And so brainstorming ideas that the idea is you're asking your interviewees to brainstorm or think of ideas that they've related to. So ideas that have always come, there's a commonality, there's a pattern. And so us as human beings, we're very much pattern people. We look for patterns, we work with patterns. And so that's no different than trying to help an individual navigate through their mental realm, about look for the patterns, what's been shown to you from the past to the present, and moving to the future. The healing, individual healing happens through patterns. And so we're looking for, at this stage, we're asking our interviewees, can you think about common themes that has occurred throughout their lives. So begin to think about the following ideas, such as one question you can help them navigate that brainstorming is, what symbols have spoken to you? So you can ask your interviewees, what symbols have spoken to you? An example of symbols, what I speak of, is you can offer them circles, crosses, triangles, medicine wheels, trees, flowers, sweat lodges, teepees, longhouses. These symbols could be birds, could be animals, two-legged, the four-legged. Grandmother Moon could be a symbol. The stars, our cousins, the stars. Light or darkness is very symbolic. Rainbows, water, fire, air, Mother Earth. So again, it's about asking them or giving them ideas to think about what symbols have they recognized in their lives. What's become very symbolic in their lives in terms of strength based, in terms of what's helped them heal. And again, we don't know those symbols, but it doesn't mean that we can't Just share some ideas, and these ideas I shot from you are ideas that I've reflected upon. So whenever you're given advice to your interviewees, always reflect upon your own sacred story, and what worked for you. Is not necessarily what's going to work for them, but what worked for you. And those are the kind of ideas that you can fall back on when approaching that relationship with your interviewee. So to wrap that up, if you're ever feeling stuck of what questions to ask reflective questions about yourself, in terms of what helped you in the past, and that can be a beginning a question for them, a beginning reflective state you can put them in. So this is why it's always been important and paramount for you to learn your sacred story, because it's going to be your sacred story you can fall back on at any time, any given place in your life. You can always fall back on your sacred story and draw things to the present in order for a future activity, event to happen. And so that going back to the past can very much uphold and create your intent for a research project such as this one. A second thought that you can bring to the table could be, what letters or numbers have spoken to them in the past. Again, thinking about numbers or letters in the past, or in the present, or in the future. Because we're not in the future right now, it doesn't mean we can't speak of it. There could be the dreams or thoughts that we've come across that we haven't shared with others, but it doesn't mean we can't turn on and acknowledge that medicine, because future thoughts are very much medicines, and depending on if we act upon them and or continually working with them and walking with them. So certain letters and numbers, such as our family, our friends, our spouse's name, our birth dates, those can carry significant times within one's life. And so if you believe your birthday is your number one ceremony, that you've come here in Mother Earth, and you can speak about that moment and how that's important because of the fact you're very grateful in life, then so be it. It's going to be your birthday number. So thinking about numbers in your own life, thinking about letters in your own life, is going to help you create those questions, allow your interviewee to help navigate their thoughts when they're brainstorming. Again, they're going to be on a scrap piece of paper, jotting ideas. Hopefully they're going to be doing this while you're speaking to them. As I'm speaking to you, if you're taking notes, just bear in mind that as you're speaking, they may be taking ideas, because what ideas that you shared, you might have turned a light bulb on with some of them. You may have jotted a thought or a feeling from them, and they're going to jot something down as you speak. And so always keeping your conversation flowing at the best abilities that you can. As story catchers, we're always out there to catch the story, but not only catch it, to learn it and to give back. That give back part is our knowledge, our medicine that we've come to learn. We're able to give that back through conversation, through keeping our thoughts and share aspects of our story with our interviewee. And that becomes, that critical approach allows an individual, again, to navigate through their brainstorming. So while they're working on the scrap piece of paper, you can also ask them about words, what words have spoke out to them, what words that they've come to learn, whether it's in English Cree or in their own native tongue. There could be a Mohawk, Anishinaabe, Algonquin. And so even words within their culture, is there any words that they've come to learn, that they're walking with and or learning, that they want to write down? That element within a body map can go far in terms of gathering those gifts / that data. We also know that the native tongue, again, whether it be Cree, Mohawk, Anishinaabe, Algonquin, we know those terms are very much alive, and they do carry could be 2-3 day story depending on what word is used, and we're not sure. We're not there to judge a story. We're there to gauge a story. I rather use the word gauge in terms of when you gauge a story, when you're gauging someone's growth, you're keeping open-minded. You're allowing yourself to learn from the story. And our people, when it comes to judging, it was always shared to me that we don't understand that term judging, because your sacred story is unique as my sacred story is unique, and I'm never going to truly understand or fully understand my sacred story, because the old ones shared to us that healing is a lifelong journey. And so, if that's true, if indeed that is a lifelong journey, then we're never going to get to know ourselves. Therefore, I'm never going to be able to pass judgment. I shouldn't be able to pass judgment on to the next brother or sister about their sacred story. And that's how another example of how ethical space can be shown and heard and applied. And so looking at words can be very powerful in one sacred story. Words such as, or words or phrases, it could be phrases as well, such as the good life, Minopamazoan. Could be such words from the 7 grandfather teachings: love, trust, respect, humility, wisdom, truth, bravery, and courage. It could be elder. The word could be elder. It could be an elder's name. That could be one of the words. Again, never limit them of words I use, but it providing that space to keep that space open so that they feel free. They feel that they're in a good space to explore words and names. And if they're not carrying their language, I'm like myself, I don't carry my language. But it doesn't mean that I'm not working and walking along Cree terms and understanding and sharing and exploring those Cree terms. And so with the young people, or with the interviewees, they may be working with terms and they may be shy. They may not be feeling adequate enough to share those terms. It's up to us story catchers to, again, provide the ethical space to whereas they want to share those terms, those sacred terms. Your ethics, your morals, and your values, that comprises your ethics. So you're bringing in your morals and values into that space. How would you want to be treated is how they're going to want to be treated. And so, again, the reciprocity, that responsibility, and that the accountability as story catchers, you're able to do that. You're able to provide that. You're able to be those helpers to the research, to their lives, first and foremost. And how do you honor that story again? The fourth idea that you can bring to them to help navigate their sacred story is what sounds have come to them. So where do they hear these sounds? Who introduced such sounds to them? That could be car horns from their experience of being in the city, and how that might have been a detachment from them going to the bush. It could be birds at first thing in the morning. Maybe it was birds that they first heard when they went first camping, or when they went on their first fast, or when they went on just a nature hike. And so it's birds. And what sound what came to them. So giving them that space to share sounds is a good thing. Dogs barking. Could be their favorite dog. Could be their first dog. Could be the teaching behind the dog. Again, we don't know their knowledge. We don't know where they've come to learn, who they are, where they're from. We just have the beautiful ability to walk with their sacred story and to allow them to humbly share their story with us. And in my view, it's very humble. It's an act of humility that we can explore and share and teach and learn constantly. Again, going back to learn what it means to be human. So you needed to, as you go through these 4 ideas, you may need to repeat these categories as your interview's thinking. And so if there's a pause within the interview and they're thinking, you can always go back and revisit those lists. It could be words again, could be letters, could be numbers, could be sounds. The idea is that you're only there to help guide the brainstorm and activity and not to do it for them. We're not, to as story catchers, we may have a glimpse or a notion of our own sacred story, but we can't place that story upon someone. We can't guide their story from our story. We can give them hints and share that reciprocity or that relationality, but we can't afford to guide the research. And so these are only ideas, high level ideas, and so it's going to be up to them whether they'll go deeper within that story, and that comes later when the actual body mapping will be created. So in other words, you're not there to guide the research, as I shared. Rather, you can play the helper role within this project. And so it's up to us, it's up to you guys to help make those mental domain, those connections with them. So remembering this may be an activity that they're not used to doing. An example is where you're asking them about their sacred story. You're asking them about what it means. What does culture mean to the body? Or teach us what the body means to culture. It's not a common question that they're going to be asked or had they asked. And maybe their parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, or teachers, that for that matter, or professors, maybe they haven't even asked those questions to them. And so we're going to be the very first ones hitting the ground and asking these questions. So this is why that ethical space is important to uphold and to approach. And so remembering that we're helpers to, in means of, we're going to help this one spirit, again, this spirit to spirit, when it comes to get to know and walking with someone's sacred story. So getting to know one's spirit, there's a process to that. There's a humility, there's a patience process to that. Again, if that notion of idea of approaching a relationship is still foggy, take it to the medicines. Take it to the smudge. Find that quiet spot and say your prayers. Share the prayer. Pray the way you know how you pray. Pray the way you were taught. But make sure it's your own words, and look for that and think about and reflect upon what you're asking that medicine to do for you. And knowing that in life nothing's for free. There's always an exchange in life. And so that exchange, that's what we're looking for. So your job is to create that ethical space to where they want to share with you. Again, that's the story catcher. That's the story catcher. You're getting to learn yarning techniques. You're getting to learn ethical space, relationality, positionality. You can draw from those ceremonies that we've attended. You can draw from those seminars or symposiums or conferences that we've gone to. Who'd you talk to, and how'd you share what you know? And so you're bringing that to the table, and how you engage with your interviewee. So please share that they don't have to complete this brainstorming during the session, during the Zoom call that your guys are going to make. It's paramount, again, to share with them. We're not here to rush your sacred story. We're not here to haphazardly push our knowledges upon yourself. But rather, ethical space has always taught us to go with ease, walk with patience, walk with that humility. If it takes 2-3 days for them to do this brainstorming, to help them go take that journey from mind to heart, then it takes 2-3 days. We have the time. I'm not going anywhere. You guys aren't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. And so when I share that, what I'm talking about, we're in a position to work within that reflection state more so than none. Now, things have slowed down. So if it takes 2-3 days for them to complete this brainstorming, then so be it. That's part of honoring that sacred story, and that's expressing that ethics of non-interference, not continually bugging them an hour after the interview. Hey, are you done? Are you done? By chance, are you done? Allow that medicine to unfold naturally, as it should. So offer them about 2-3 days to think upon their questions. Again, those questions I'm going to text you guys these questions either through your text or through Messenger. So you're going to have these questions with you. I have it on a PowerPoint slides right now. I'll bring that to the team. I'll send it to the team email so you guys can all access the questions, and you can access this PowerPoint, if you will. So reminding them that they will be transferring their brainstorming session that we're going to be working on during the first stage. We're going to be doing that down the road, and so, but not to speak about the body map and the second phase of the body mapping right now, because the idea is to keep them in the present, keep them with this scrap piece of paper, keep them in the brainstorming stage, because the idea from, nobody's really taught us about how to take what's in the mental realm onto paper. That process itself could be very scary, it could be very vulnerable, and you may hear or feel that vulnerability through the Zoom call, because it is a process. Again, if nobody's ever asked you about that aspects of your sacred story, and here you are asking the very first time, there's going to be some hesitation, and so much patience from our behalf is going to have to be evident. And so for them to be able to share those questions back to them and offer those questions, they can take those 2 or 3 days if need be, and further develop their brainstorming session. And that's always going back to you guys are able to honor that sacred story. And so that's all I have right now in terms of the body mapping. Again, this is phase 1 of phase 2, or phase 1 of 2, sorry, the brainstorming section. The one project that we did do in the past, it took a day, an evening for them to navigate, and it took them a while to actually work within that brainstorming session. Some of them worked in groups, some of them decided to work on by themselves. But as you're asking these questions, keep those questions close to you. That way it keeps your language, your conversation flowing. You can use my examples from the questions, or you can turn around and draw from your own sacred story. Because if you're drawing from your own story, if you're drawing examples from your own story, then you're going to be able to deliver. The deliverables of the question is going to be a little bit more natural. So if you use my examples, then you can just read them off, but the naturality is not going to be there. So if you can reword it to whereas it's coming from your own sacred story, your own thoughts, your own memories, your own heart, your own spirit, then I recommend that going that route. So the idea is to again go through the brainstorming activity. Take your time. Allow for that space. Allow for at least 2 hours of that time. And because it's research, because it's more so, because it's someone's sacred story, if it takes 2 hours for them to do it, so then it takes 2 hours. Your responsibility is to book that time off. Make sure you're in a place where you have 2 hours to spend, where you're not going to be bothered. I'm going to be with you. I can be with you during this session, because you're going to be your guys' very first shot at delivering the body mapping session, and so I'll be there to help navigate, like I was there for your very first interview. I'm just going to be in the background. I'm coming to learn that you guys are fast learners. You're able to compute knowledge I'm sharing with you, but at the same time, I also, as your mentor, as your coordinator here in Saskatoon site, Many Thunderbirds Feasting, I want to be there with your journey. I want to be there as you grow, as that mentor, because your growth is important to mine. My growth is, hopefully, it's important to yours as well. This is new stuff. This is virtual meetings. I'm getting used to it. I've probably said so many times. I'm just wondering what the transcript's going to look like. But that's all I have for now, this session. So this is the body map and brainstorming methodological session with Kelley Bird Naytowhow. Hi, miigotch.